This week's podcast is brought to you by the Tracy Area Chamber of Commerce. Kick off the holidays in Tracy on Saturday, November 29th. Kids can start by sharing all their dreams with Santa from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. at Greenwood Nursery. Kids can get a free book from the Kiwanis Club and a free take-home craft from Small Town Crafting while supplies last. Sponsored by Midwest Bank and the Chamber. Make sure to bring your camera for a photo with Santa. Spend the day shopping locally and wrap up the evening with our lighted parade in downtown Tracy at 6 p.m. Come discover Tracy this holiday season.
Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on when you're listening to me. This is the Headlight Hot Seat podcast. Welcome. I am Per, your host for the next half hour or so, and my guest today is girls basketball coach and assistant football coach at TMB, Mr. Derek Ashbaugh. Thank you for joining us, Derek.
Absolutely, Per. Great to be here.
So let's get to know Derek a little bit. Tell us, let's go back to your childhood. I sound like a psychiatrist now.
Well, I'm originally from north central Minnesota in a couple small towns called Bertha Hewitt, and that's where I graduated. Grew up in a small dairy farm and kind of towards the end of the whole small dairy farm era. As like by the time I graduated, my parents were kind of closing up shop, and several other families had kind of closed up shop. But so those early mornings and milking cows and doing all that fun stuff.
Okay, I didn't know that about you.
Yeah.
We got to dive into that a little bit.
Oh, there's a lot of good fun there. But grew up on the dairy farm and obviously had to help out quite a bit. And then I had a couple friends that kind of got me into some sports. And like I always loved watching football because Dad loved the Vikings. So we were always able to kind of watch and connect through that. And then,
Poor guy.
well, it's been
It's a rough ride.
there's been a lot of pain, right? A lot of pain for sure.
Absolutely.
As some sports kind of came into play, I found that as a nice way to maybe get out of a couple different chores and stuff like that. But really developed a love for the both football and basketball at a pretty early age and kind of carried on. And luckily for me, I was able to play for some really good coaches in my high school career, and also lucky to be able to play with some really talented kids. So enjoyed some success and just like totally dove into it. And it was kind of ironic because one of my teammates when I was a senior in basketball was like, I think you'd actually make a good coach one of these days.
Oh,
I was
really?
like,
Foreshadowing.
yeah, and I was like, are you trying to tell me I'm not very good now playing or what? But
Those who can't teach.
right, yeah. But finished up high school career there and really enjoyed my experience and was kind of moved by some teachers that I had that also had coached. And I thought, man, they just seem like they're loving life every single day. Like they're coming in, they got a big smile and they're super happy and they're always upbeat and interacting with kids. So decided that I thought that would be a good career choice. And so went to SMSU in Marshall, and which for the Bertha Hewitt area is like we'd had one kid go there in the last 15 years. So it was kind of a different move. And I was ready to kind of break apart from, a lot of kids went to Moorhead States, St. Cloud State, some of the Bemidji State, stuff like that. But
We're talking like 3 hours away from.
yeah, about 3.5 hours away. So kind of struck off on my own, and it was a great decision because loved SMSU, met some great people there, and as most people know, they do a great job with their teaching program there, and learned a lot and really enjoyed the experience. And then was able to finish up my college career. And
You went into education. This is a dumb question, maybe. But
yep,
because you mentioned, I know SMSU has always had a good teaching education program.
correct. Yep. I wanted to for a little bit, and I joke about this a lot, even with my students today. I thought about being a math teacher, and then got partway into some of the math classes, and I'm like, you know what? This is fine. I can do this, but I don't really love this. And so, numbers and like sine, cosine, tangent, all this stuff. It's like
stop right there.
some nightmares are popping up, right?
Yeah.
It was fine, but I really enjoyed like the stories that come with with history, and so that was a pretty quick and natural transition. I made that to become a history teacher, and finished up schooling there and did some student teaching in a fairly small town back home called Staples Motley, where I was able to actually meet a nice Tracy alum, Mr. Ryan Luft. So little did I know that we were going to kind of connect up there. And then as you graduate, you're just, as a teacher 15 years ago, you're just, all right, I'm just sending my resume to basically anybody as long as I can afford the stamps on it. Like I'm just sending it out to anybody, and was kind of hoping for a couple closer to home, and saw like one for KMS, and had high hopes there, and
Speaking of Ryan Luft, right?
Right. Yep. And a few others. And as fate kind of had it, like Ryan asked me one day, "Hey, so just finishing up your eval for this and that, and you're applying to some places, right?" I'm like, "Yep. Have you ever heard of a place called Tracy?" And he's like, "Well, let me tell you."
Oh,
And
wow. That's how you got here? I mean, that's not how you got, but that's part of your journey, right?
that's part of it. Yeah, that was part of it. And it was like a day or two later, I got a call. "Hey, we'd like to have you come down for an interview sometime, later this week." And so it was kind of unique because that was I'd sent out 6, 7. Oh, whoops.
Don't do that. You're the third person to do that on this podcast.
Darn it.
Oh, my God.
I sent out several applications, and this was the first one I'd actually heard back from. So
Tracy was?
yeah, and so I jumped all over it. And like in being at SMSU, you heard TMB or Tracy on the radio from time to time, but because I didn't go to games or anything like that, I didn't have much of a purpose to ever go here. So I'm like, I think I've heard of that, right? So yeah, came down here, interviewed, and they, for whatever reason, they gave me the job, and been here ever since. So
It's funny you mentioned Ryan, and obviously you know how talented his girls are.
yeah,
And you had to face them numerous times. Do you ever go back and forth, like, to put the Love girls on the bench for a while and let us
oh yeah,
start?
there's definitely like at his time from Staples and then down to YME, like we've had constant interaction all along the way.
Cool.
So it's been kind of a cool relationship. And in fact, when we were up there for football, we were talking about girls basketball here for this winter. So kind of cool that we get to see them every year, and it's a good friendship.
Let's get into, before we hit the hardwood, teaching a little bit. Teaching today is different than it was when I was in high school a couple years ago. What are the challenges that you face as a teacher today when you're talking about technology, especially cell phones? And I mean, it's so different now. Is it tougher, do you think, than it was maybe 10 years ago, or more challenging?
It's it's both tougher and easier, if that makes any sense. Like it sometimes changes. Like it makes it so that you're constantly looking for the abuse of that technology while trying to foster proper use of it too, which is a bit of a challenge. And then it makes it easier at times because there are some kids that, hey, I'll look that up, or hey, I've got the answer, or click, and if there's some random fact that some kid's asking about, it makes it easier to kind of keep fostering that curiosity and that interest in whatever subject we're covering at that point. But it definitely does come with its challenges.
Well, AI has got to be a challenge too, because when I did a story with Dr. Anderson a couple months ago, we were talking about how it has the potential to limit someone's creativity.
For
And
sure.
even the teachers to a point. I know it's a benefit to the teachers, lessons plans and whatnot, but do you worry about that? Like it's too easy for kids to do it these days?
Yeah, I think the ease of technology and AI are kind of like it's a really, really fine line because you're setting this incredibly dangerous precedent to where, well, what is this? I'm just going to Google it. Okay, well, you can't quite Google everything, though. Like, there's a bunch of stuff you can Google, and that's awesome if you're willing to do that and look stuff up. But there's also just some things that you kind of have to work through and kind of figure out. And I think that's maybe where we're losing some of that
I mean, it's kind of
problem-solving skills.
right. It's kind of a crutch.
Yeah,
I think,
for sure.
And maybe gets kids a little bit, I don't know if lazy is the right word, but just complacent to the point where, well, I don't have to open a book. I'll just, type something in on Google, and there it is.
Yeah, and I actually some kid the other day was asking, well, what's this word or what's this word? And I'm that guy. I still have a dictionary in my classroom,
Ooh,
so
old school.
I broke it out and gave them the Webster's. And to their credit, they started looking at some of that. But
They didn't say, what's this?
well, they
What
did
am I
say,
supposed
"What's
to do with
this?" But then they're like, "Oh my gosh, there's all these words that begin with." I'm like, "Yep, knock yourself out,
It's
right?"
called,
So,
yeah,
yeah,
that's scary. But
but
it's scary and good in two different ways, though. Because technology has helped me a lot, and I hate technology, but I'm kind of a hypocrite because I lean on it too
yeah,
when it
it's
comes to typing and research.
and kids are really good at like noting that double standard too, as they're always great at catching you in those moments. But like it is, like I said, that's that fine line where okay, we want to use it and it's beneficial to use it, but then how much do we use it? I think the best word that you used was like a crutch, where
Yeah.
you know, coming from your time and my time where that wasn't even really utilized. Like I was going to school when they were still using overhead projectors, and if technology busted at that point, the bulb went out, right? So it was a little bit different,
We didn't miss what we didn't have. We didn't know what
right?
we were. But
And
I'm older than you, so
well,
go on now.
I had those too. Even in college, I had the overheads too.
Yep.
So,
Okay.
but
Chalkboards.
chalkboards, yep. I did have a chalkboard in my classroom for the first couple of years as well. Didn't use it a ton, but a little
No.
bit. But now it's kind of for even for teachers, like, hey, if we don't have a good internet connection, dang, part of my lesson plan is shot. Like, how am I
Oh,
going to
yeah.
get this information conveyed to you guys? And it's different because those kids, that is what they're used to. So they haven't known anything different, and that's the challenge. And it's difficult because every time you say, well, if you don't, you can't always have this, you do sound like, oh, back in my day is what they
I
immediately
know. I hate
start.
saying that too.
And they're like, oh, did you have to walk uphill both ways? Just, I'm like, okay, all right. Like, I get it, whatever.
Horse and
But
buggy carry to school.
yeah. But no, it is a really fine line. It's tough. You try to toe it as much as you possibly can to use the benefits of it. Be aware of, I think, being educated and being aware of the negatives, and then just have the proper training. Like the school did a good job this year of
Yes, they did.
getting some training for us, so that oh, hey, this is what this kind of looks like. There's always some telltale signs. Like if I'm reading a couple sentences, I'm like, yep, this kid has no idea what that word is, let alone.
Yeah, right.
But so there's always some of those things. But yeah, it's kind of a challenge and one of the tricky parts of teaching these days.
And someone said to me a really good quote a couple weeks ago. It's school's about learning how to learn, and now learning how to learn is so different, and you don't know what the kids are really missing. How much are they learning and comprehending? That's kind of scary.
It is, and you kind of wonder because technology does change so fast. Like, okay, how much are we teaching that is kind of almost obsolete ways of doing things versus like, okay, but you still want to be, I know Mrs. Vendrachek always used to use the phrase lifelong learners, right? So, like, how do you foster that? Because that's the important part. If people do continuously want to try to learn and investigate things if they're curious about, they'll be okay. But kind of taking away that crutch from them is a challenge. So,
Okay, let's leave the classroom and go to the gym. When did you start coaching the girls' basketball team?
my first year in Tracy, I was really lucky. I kind of joke with her every once in a while. I pestered the heck out of Katie Gervais because she was the head girls basketball coach at that time, and I was like, "Hey, I know you're in volleyball season," and like little did I know like like how deep the volleyball season could go and everything. To her credit, but
Yep.
she's like, "Hey, yeah, that's great. I would love to have somebody there and a young guy. This will be great." And so. Like the stuff I was able to learn from her was tremendous. Like I think being next to her for that first year, 2 years was great because I'd never coached girls before. Well, I'd barely coached girls before. I'd done a small stint doing JV softball at Staples Motley, but she was able to, okay, you're going to want to do this and make sure this and be careful of this and look out for this. And all of a sudden I turned, I'm like, I would have never have thought that would have been a thing. And like, I obviously was used to the small town setting. So some of that stuff I got, but I'm like, oh, okay, well, this was all very, very different. And it was good. It was a great learning process for me. And I can't thank KG enough for that. But yeah, that first staff was, I believe it was me, Mr. Erickson, and Coach Gervais, and Mr. Otto, who was also a really great tool to use the first couple of years because he had a lot of information and knowledge on just Tracy in general, and he was a huge help to me as well.
What year did you start? We're talking. I'm trying to think myself with Katie and Gail and all those names you dropped.
I want to believe it would have been the school year of 11 and 12.
Okay. So you mentioned coaching girls, and I find it interesting trying to analyze what Carl does with he's wrestling and then he goes right into girls softball. I don't know how he does it. Olivia played for him, but what's that like? Do you approach it differently? Because you're a football coach as well, an assistant football coach. Do you approach girls differently? Kid gloves, or how does that work with that gender?
I think I look at it a little bit more. There are some differences for sure between guys and girls, and I think there's bigger differences between coaching football versus basketball, and I think like that's the kind of the approach that I take with it, where like almost everything in football, as you're yelling across the field, has to be loud, you have to be able to get people's attention.
You do that quite well.
I appreciate that.
That's not an insult.
One of my finer skills, right? And where you get to basketball, you do have to be careful because loudness and tone are not like.
Okay, wait a minute. Time out. You're being a little hypocritical now because I've seen you and heard you on the court.
Yep.
During basketball games. You've crushed a couple clipboards in your time, I think, at least one.
Uh-huh.
I know you get caught up in the emotions of the game and the flow of the game, especially a close game, and even 20-point games. You really put yourself out there as a coach, and I don't know if it's you get caught up in the moment, or how do you know sometimes when you maybe were a little too loud or you went too far with the ref?
There's definitely times, and you would have to tell me, I guess. I think I'm a little bit better now than I was. Like my last couple years are probably better than my first 5 to 10 years. But yeah, that's definitely, at first it was kind of checking the competitive spirit and nature because you're like, okay, and just getting used to and adjusting to that. And the last couple years, there's been some of that. It's a lot more measured now.
Most of the time.
Most of the time, yeah. There's still the occasional.
But you're not yelling at the girls.
No.
That's something I've also noticed about you is the refs get on everyone's nerves, and they do miss calls. And they sometimes get abused by the fans and the
myself.
Yeah, but that's what they sign out for. You got to be careful though. We're dealing with 16, 17-year-old, 18-year-old girls and boys too. Maybe you treat the football players a little differently, but in this day and age, you can't go too far. Physical contact and all that stuff. But it's funny how I watch you on the football field and I watch you in the court, and it's kind of the same, but it's different, isn't it?
Yeah, like I think I'm way more demonstrative on the football field, and some of that is distance too. Like
you have to be
having to get people's attention from time to time, and sometimes it's not. But on the court, gyms are so much more enclosed, so much tighter, and like you kind of talked a little bit about it before. I make sure I have a conversation with the girls every single year. Like, I need you guys to know that, sometimes I may yell just to get people's attention, and how they pick up on that tone is, different sometimes than how boys would do it. I think that's one of the big distinctions. But I also
react to you.
Right. Yeah. Yep. I also need to make sure that I'm giving them a warning that sometimes I may yell just to get your attention and not. You didn't do anything wrong at all.
That's a good point.
And that's the tough part. I think that's one of the biggest challenges where most guys perceive that a little bit different. Females sometimes just take being yelled at as being yelled at, and that can be hurtful and harmful sometimes. So that is something I've really tried to keep in check. Now the officials, that's a little bit different, and
they're free game.
and and there's a bunch of officials I've got a really good relationship with and just kind of BS with. And
But don't they understand too that you're a coach, and no matter if you're close with them, have a good relationship, you're going to sometimes go off the handle a little bit.
yeah, and I think most of them understand that and can handle that pretty well. And obviously at this point, I've been, if they've been reffing for a while, they've seen me in the last 15 years. So
Ashbaugh.
yeah, and there may be some that say it that way and go into games that way, but yeah, there's a bunch that. Boy, you kind of got to calm down today. This is, it's like, okay, all
But
right.
at the end of the game, you're like, thanks for coming.
Yeah.
Good game. You congratulate them and appreciate their presence, because we're having a shortage of officials. That's been going on for a decade.
And they sign up for it, but it's also oftentimes a thankless job too. And I know, I always joke with the girls because I'm trying to be an official sometimes during practice. I'm going to miss a bunch of stuff. And as you're doing, you're like, I can see where this would be tough if you're standing here to not get that right angle and everything. And I know that there's been times where I've talked to them like, okay, I know you from your angle can't see that, and I'm not blaming you at all. But so you try to have as many casual conversations with them as humanly possible. Some invite the conversation and some don't want any conversation, which is also fine. Like if they don't want any conversation, they just want to focus on what they're doing, that's okay too. I'll probably end up just talking to myself and some of the girls and Bolts every once in a while. But yeah, I like to talk at least a little bit during games, and I've tried to quell some of that outburst or energy or spirit, whatever it is. But I obviously have to have some of that, otherwise I wouldn't feel like me as I'm coaching too.
I wonder what the cool down period that you guys have after every game. Every sport does it, and I'm going back to a couple of those New London Spicer section games. Do you find that as a cool down period for yourself too, not just the girls, because you have to come out and deal with me and deal with the radio after that? What's that like? That bridge between we just lost a section game, a tough game, or we got blown out or whatever, and that between that and okay, now I got to deal with the media. Is that a nice time for you to just catch your breath and then kind of go on about your business, the duties as a head coach?
Yeah, that's always a big part of it, because you can be done with the game, talk to the team, and even while you're talking to the team, you still want to deliver the right message and be on point with that. So you basically get through the handshake line, and sometimes it's okay, I get my, 30 steps into the locker room. Sometimes it's not even that, because maybe opposing coach comes up and maybe presses an issue with something. So you got to be ready for that kind of adjustment there. But that's usually that first walk is like, okay, gathering my thoughts, what needs to be said. And then after you talk to the team, it's kind of like trying to flush the emotion of the game out.
That's tough.
And especially for a emotional, passionate person that I am, like that can be difficult. But it's also, I think, as I've more and more necessary, whether I had radio or a newspaper interview or not. Like I think doing that is healthier for me, because as a competitive person, sometimes you do want to carry that with you. And when I was in high school, I know, hey, if we lose a game that I didn't think we should have, like, just don't talk to me. Do not talk to me for 24 hours, and like let me be. I'll be okay, but I have to work through that. Well, now you got to flush that and adjust, and I think that's been good, because I've been able to think a little bit clearer. If you do, we get a big win, okay, cool, that's a lot easier. Tough loss, okay, talk, flush, newspaper, radio, and then, all right, now we're resetting again to maybe talking to a couple parents or a couple kids, like, how's the ankle? Do you need some ice? And then we try to, at least for home games, have a coach's recap afterwards where, all right, so reaction from tonight and what do we got to do moving forward. There's always trying to get both of those two things, that what was important tonight and then what do we need to do for the day tomorrow or the next coming days. So
Well, I try to give you a little bit of a window, and I never want to push you, but sometimes I'm on deadline or I gotta get out of there. But I do understand that you need a little bit of a little window there, a little downtime. Let's talk about this year's team. You lost 7 seniors from last year's team, which it was a tough year for you guys last year. But what's it like having to replace? And we're just getting started here with practices and your first games, but replacing those seniors, especially the starters, the key players. How's that for you, that transition? And talk a little bit about this year's team too.
So, like, anytime you lose, especially a lot of seniors, that's always tough because you're constantly wondering, okay, well, how much experience do we have coming back? And one of the big parts is usually like, is that experience in a position where they can be good leaders too? And thankfully, we've had a couple of kids that have come back and have kind of taken up on that leadership role. But the other thing that comes with losing 7 seniors is at the very late, like, we're losing 7 kids too. Relationships.
You're not losing the relationships, but the high school.
The relationship has now
coach.
changed. Yep.
Yeah.
The relationship has now changed a little bit. And it is a little bit different. And you kind of, it's always tough. Like, you build up for a couple years and you really develop and you see those relationships mature because, hey, I've been coaching you in camps all the way up from 2nd and 3rd grade all the way through here. So I've known you for roughly 10 years now, and they've known me and everything. So it's kind of that weird moment, but no, it's always tough. And now, like, with just the numbers crunch that we're in, where we don't have 20-some girls, losing 7 girls that's big, that's significant. So
and no seniors on this year's team.
So and that's a challenge, but I think we're trying to take approach at it to look like, okay, we really have an opportunity to work with and grow this group. We have a lot more time than we normally would with most teams. You kind of mentioned that high school teams are constantly changing. It's a lot like D1, high D1 football or basketball, where an entire roster can turn over pretty much in one season. We're to that point now where we had 20-some kids last year, and now we're sitting here with about 15 girls, and now it's 9 through 12. So it's different. I think so far this group has done a really good job of, and I've talked about it with this junior class. They've all these kids have shown different leadership skills and talent, and it's been something that we're really trying to foster with them, which is great. But it's nice to be able to have leadership come from different avenues too. So,
have you ever had a team with no seniors? That just blows me away.
Oh boy,
that's a tough question. If you can't answer it,
a couple years ago, we had Haley as the only senior.
Oh, that's right.
I think this is the first year ever. We've had a couple where it's been 1 or 2, but I do believe this is the first one ever that we haven't had a senior. So
it's something, the ebbs and flows and the ups and downs of every year is different. You go back to 2018, you had Evie, Sid, Kaylee, Christian,
Alicia,
chock full of seniors, really good seniors.
Yep.
I know that's your goal to get back there, but when you enter a season, do you think, okay, we're going to state this year? What are your goals? What are your expectations? Do you tell the girls, here's what we want to accomplish this year? We want to win the Camden, or do you go specific like that?
So we usually have them kind of set their goals, and like sometimes there's some good and bad to that. We've learned along the way. I want one to get their ideas. What are you guys thinking? Yeah. Because if you guys aren't thinking or wanting to win the Camden or to do this or to do that, then maybe you're not thinking. Maybe they're not being honest about what they want. Maybe they're not. I mean, we do have the kind of talent here to do some stuff. So there's some give and take with that, but we try not to maybe talk about elements of the game that we think, hey, this is, with our personnel, like we could do this really, really well. Hey, this is something that's going to have to be a challenge for us because we might not be as natural at this. So try to give them some positives and negatives. And I don't usually get in too much about, okay, we got to win the Camden this year. We got to win subsection and then working our way into that.
It's not beat Minnesota.
No, like that's always one of the goals, right? And a lot of the times, like during those years of the 2016, 17, 18, yeah, they knew, like, hey, they came right out and said, this is what we want. Okay, well then here's how we're working towards that, right? And other years, okay, we want to do this and this and this. And sometimes you kind of jab in there and you're like, hey, you guys, there's more to this group than just that. So you trying to make it as much of a learning experience for them and kind of get big picture themselves and see, okay, what is technically feasible? And sometimes they haven't thought about their competition within the conference or the subsection. So at least tries to get them to think a little bit about that.
It's time for our final segment, best and worst. You're the second person to do this. Best part of your job as a coach.
As a coach?
Actually, you can go any way you want. If you want to do as a teacher, as an educator, I'll let you.
I'd kind of cheat. Basically, the best part would be from both situations, being able to like build and grow and develop relationships with different kids. Because from a coaching standpoint, like I mentioned, sometimes kids for 10 plus years, and you get to learn a lot of their quirks and some of their, get to have some great, cool conversations with them. And then likewise in the classroom, there's some kids that, okay, I may not coach you, but I'm always going to have some. That doesn't mean we can't have a great relationship either. And there's been plenty of kids that, it would have been kind of cool to coach you. I didn't coach your sport, but hey, pretty cool relationship, and we can be really honest, and we can go back and forth with stuff. So that's definitely one of the best parts of it is the constantly getting some of those new relationships, and then continuing to build and grow those relationships.
Now the fun part, the worst part of your job, coaching. Well, maybe we should stick to coaching because teaching is so important. My daughter's a teacher in Watertown, and I've always known teaching is very important, and even more so now that Olivia's become that person in front of the classroom. So let's do coaching. What's the worst part of coaching? Is there a worst part of coaching?
I think especially as we're getting into this, whatever you want to call it, like new era of high school sports, where things are becoming so much more specialized, and it's becoming so much more, well, I'm only going to play one sport. I'm only going to play two sports. I don't think I have time for this. And I don't think kids always give themselves enough credit for their ability to go in a lot of different ways. And that's leading to, a lot of sports have just simply lower enrollment numbers. And obviously girls basketball would be one of the biggest victims of that. So it was always nice when I first started here coaching. Well, we got 30 kids in the gym, and we're doing a bunch of stuff, and that's awesome. And now you got half that number, and you're okay. We're making it work with this group, and
that's declining enrollment too.
It's not right. It's not just,
but it affects sports
big time. Yeah, and this has kind of been trending for the last several years now. But that's kind of one of the worst things where it's okay. We don't always get to have as many numbers as we'd like, but and again, that goes back to the relationships too. You'd like to build and foster all those, but tough to sometimes change kids' mind too.
Derek, you're off the hot seat. Thank you for joining me today.
Appreciate it, Pear. Thanks.
This week's podcast was brought to you by the Tracy Area Chamber of Commerce. Kick off the holidays in Tracy on Saturday, November 29th. Kids can start by sharing all their dreams with Santa from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. at Greenwood Nursery. Kids can take home a free book from the Kiwanis Club and a free take-home craft from Small Town Crafting while supplies last. Sponsored by Midwest Bank and the Chamber. Make sure to bring your camera for a photo with Santa. Spend the day shopping locally and wrap up the evening with our lighted parade in downtown Tracy at 6 p.m. Come discover Tracy this holiday season.